Most people who watch don't know this one item. There are long periods of stillness on set, even if everyone is laughing and saying dynamite. We need all the aid we can get. Land of TV. Florida Evans is the star of stage screen in the ghetto. Jimmie Walker became the biggest star of the Good Times, but that very limelight showed weaknesses that couldn't be fixed. The co-workers who helped him make the perfect family image on screen stayed away from him in real life. Even Norman Lear, who came up with the idea for the program and made it a hit, hated the statement that made Walker famous. Doesn't have a door. And now Walker tells the crowd the truth about what truly happened, things they've never heard before. Is that laughter a sign of friendship? Or is it just splitting up? Stay tuned to learn all these secrets. Walker knew from the start of filming that the script wasn't making people laugh in the correct way. He decided to add a sequence of his own parts to make an effect. When dynamite came up, director John Rich told Walker to do it again. Norman Lear vehemently disagreed, saying it took away from the story's focus. Walker later said that Norman Lear loathed it and termed it the dumbest thing he had ever seen. But I had to do it because it was a means for the audience to remember me. The fight with Lear was just about creativity, but the fight with Esther Roll and John Amos was much worse. Roll previously said that Jajaya was written as an 18-year-old who does nothing, learns nothing, and thinks nothing. This was not merely a criticism of a character on paper, it was a direct attack on Walker's spectacular performance. That picture was a danger to Roll's work to create an ideal black family on TV. Amos also didn't hesitate to say that too much attention is being paid to JJ with his chicken hat and the words dynamite always being there. Walker decided to be quiet the whole time they were filming. He later said that this distance became a normal aspect of his life. He didn't get to know Raleigh and Amos on a personal level, they only talked about work when they had to. Walker always intended to focus on the family tale, but the audience expected him to laugh, so he did. The difference grew larger when the character JJ joined the show in its second season. Practically took over every episode. Things became really bad when Amos left the show after the third season. People said he left because he didn't get along with the writers, but the truth is that JJ. Everything fell apart when they became the center of attention. Walker was honest when he said, while his words may sound regretful, they also show that Walker knows the spotlight is now on him. Esther Roll then decided to leave and only came back when there was a new line in the script. Walker was the only one who had to make sure that people watched the show every week during that period. But his co-workers didn't help him with that job. He was often alone on site. Walker made funny lines on one side, and the whole cast wanted to keep things serious on the other. People who follow Walker's career often notice a peculiar contrast. He was the one who made the best memories of Good Times, but he was rarely seen as part of a close-knit acting family. He writes about how lonely he was in his memoir in a very honest and direct way. He accepted the truth that achievement comes with being alone. For Walker, JJJ is more than simply a job, it's a chance to keep his career going. He knows that in such a difficult atmosphere, he might be out of the entertainment business in just a few months if he doesn't make people laugh. This choice has caused him to have a lot of problems with other people that will last forever. Walker called that time the bad times in many interviews later on. Good Times was a cultural turning moment for him, but it also showed how lonely stardom can be. Walker nonetheless went on stage to film and said, "Dynamite," even though Amos and Roll insisted on rewriting the script. He knew he would get chilly stares right away. For Walker, Good Times was both a great turning point and a horrible memory. Every laugh from the audience made the stress on set much worse. The statements of Rolla and Amos from back then still ring true, showing that what happened behind the scenes was always more heated than what happened on the show. Lines drawn on the set. Jimmie Walker always said that he joined Good Times for one reason only: to get the crowd to chuckle. He said he felt like a fish out of water and didn't care if the story had enough depth or not. This method immediately formed an invisible line between Walker and the other actors. Walker was delighted about adding additional funny parts, but Ralph Carter and Bernadette Stanis were the only ones that stayed close to him. They welcomed that tremendous energy and even helped when they needed to. Esther Roll and John Amos, on the other hand, stayed a significant distance apart. They wanted the Evans family's image to be serious, but Walker pushed JJ's persona to be too funny. That distance slowly became an impossible wall. This discrepancy makes filming days on set quite stressful. While the other actors stick to the script, Walker keeps adding lines that aren't in it. This makes it hard for both parties to agree on something. The only thing Walker wants is live laughter from the studio audience. Roll and Amos think that the most important thing is to show a black family with respect and accountability. Every day, these two points of view fight with each other, and neither side is willing to give in. The difference became further clearer in those script talks. Walker often didn't say anything, letting the screenwriters and other actors talk about the material. He would then go on set and do things his own way. He kept his distance from the process, seeing himself as a solitary performer in a group production. This made Roll and Amos more and more angry since they thought he was getting in the way of their work together. But Walker never exhibited any remorse during the intense fight. He thought it was the best reward that every line JJ said could make the crowd laugh. This way of thinking made the filming a tribute to Division 1, with one group focusing on creating the tale and the other group trying to make funny parts. The group mood almost disappeared as the separation grew larger. The characters' feelings aren't the only thing going on. Walker doesn't want to engage with people in real life either. He doesn't conduct group activities after filming, and he doesn't talk to people much outside of work. This makes him feel even more like he is not part of the group. The others are close to each other, but Walker chooses to be alone. Walker is a unique instance because of this choice. He pops out on film, yet his co-workers forget about him in their own memories. Raleigh and Amos talk about him a lot in interviews, although most of the time they do so to disagree with him. Walker embraces this fact because, in his perspective, being spoken about, even if it's not in a good way, still means having an impact. Walker's method for setting professional limits is clearly part of a long-term plan. He doesn't try to influence his co-workers' minds or convince them to do something. He just uses humor to keep his job. So, even though the whole film crew is split up, JJ becomes a symbol. But he pays for it with loneliness and a feeling of being alone in the spotlight. Walker has always been honest in his subsequent talks for this reason as well. He says that he has never thought of Roll or Amos as friends, only as co-workers. This admission shocks a lot of people, but for Walker, it's just the reality. He makes a distinct line between business and personal life, and that line has stayed the same for decades. He is able to keep his own way, yet he has trouble connecting with the squad. His performances add excitement to the program and make the problems between the film team even worse. People still talked about those limits many years afterwards. Walker didn't deny the distance or try to make it sound better as he talked about what happened. He acknowledged that it was part of who he was and the way he decided to live in the brutal world of television. And that choice changed how the audience thought of him. A man standing alone in the middle of laughter with clear lines drawn on the set. Consequences that go beyond the stage. The gap that John Amos left when he left the cast was huge. Jimmie Walker said that the show would never be the same without him. This adjustment also put him in the spotlight, making more people look at JJA than ever before. This made things strange. Walker lost. His help became an unreplaceable face. Esther Roll had to take on more duties to keep the Evans family's good name when Amos wasn't around. Walker, on the other hand, kept working on his funny portions that became his trademark. It was getting more and more tense on set because these two roads didn't intersect very often. In the next phase, Roll fled but came back after a new deal was reached. However, the gap between her and Walker was never closed. Walker was honest about how the celebrity of his character, JJ, provided him both chances and stress. The phrase "Dynamite" was in the news a lot, on t-shirts, and became a catchphrase for a whole generation. But for him, it also became a binding restraint. After Good Times ended, Walker realized that people compared all of his subsequent work to JJ. The audience also had a hard time accepting him in diverse roles. He once said that every time he went on stage, no matter what he did, the audience was always just waiting to hear that same line again. Walker had to deal with a lot of problems because of their close connection. The sitcom The New Odd Couple only ran for a short time. Some movie roles also didn't make a difference. This reality shows what might happen if you become famous too soon. Walker became famous all around the country, but his career never reached such heights again. Walker often has to deal with his own legacy while on tour. He does a lot of new routines, but most of the people in the crowd only want to see the parts that remind them of JJ. This not only helps him keep his dedicated fans, but it also makes him feel stuck. Walker calls the time after good times the bad times because the brilliance of the past is a shadow he can't get away from. Walker never gave up, even if his career had its ups and downs. He kept his name out there by doing stand-up comedy at local venues, guest spots on TV shows, and keeping a hectic schedule. These things showed that he was strong enough to live with Jay Woyan's shadow, even though he wasn't in the spotlight like he used to be. The most important thing that happened during that time was that I felt alone. Walker said that he didn't talk to his old co-stars very often. He also lived alone, never got married, and worked most of the time. This shows that celebrity may have helped him become a star, but it also shows that he lost personal relationships. That is clear proof of how powerful a role can be, but it also shows how it will affect the career of the person who made it in the long run. What happened offstage made Walker a symbol that is both bright and full of wounds that are hard to repair. Problems and failures. Jimmie Walker is most recognized for his work on TV, but his life outside of work has been hard. One of the main problems he had was that people thought he was just like the character JJ. Many producers were unwilling to give him further jobs because of this relationship. Auditions for movies or new sitcoms typically resulted in disappointment, because both the audience and the filmmakers could only see one character. Walker once said honestly, "I missed out on a lot of chances because they only thought of JJ." The New Odd Couple, which came out in the early 1980s, was the biggest disaster following Good Times. But there were high hopes for the event, which was cancelled early, leaving Walker with another unhappy blot on his career record. He kept acting in a number of movies, but he never really made it big. His career kept going downhill, so he had to go back to stand-up comedy, where people were still anxious to hear "No Might" again. Walker's life outside of work isn't going so well. He has never been married and does not have his own family. Walker talks about how he has never found the proper person and doesn't want to settle down just because society tells him to. People are talking about him a lot since he chose to be unmarried, especially when many of his co-workers from the same time have started families. This choice gives Walker both freedom and a lengthy time alone. Walker has gotten a lot of attention for his political views, in addition to the problems he's had in his career and personal life. He has said several times that he is conservative and has publicly backed politicians that are not popular. This statement has gotten a lot of different comments from people in the entertainment sector, as most artists tend to have different opinions. He admits that being honest has cost him a lot of opportunities. Walker has had to deal with problems in the modern Hollywood environment in the last few years. He often talks bad about what people call political correctness, saying that the strictness around language has taken away the freedom that the entertainment business used to have. This honest opinion hasn't helped him get back important chances, but it shows that he is still the same person, always being loyal to himself even when it costs him. These things show that Walker is having a hard time with the legacy of JSJ and also has a lot of personal problems. He has had a lot of disappointments in his work, a lonely personal life, and contentious political ideas. He is always on a rough path with many twists and turns. Every choice has consequences, and the mistakes Walker made in the past have impacted who he is now. Legacy and final thoughts. Jimmie Walker lived on with a legacy that is both great and controversial long after the good times were done. He entered his older years while people still often remember the stories that happened behind the scenes at that time. Walker thinks of his achievement as a double-edged sword. It made him a cultural figure on the one hand, but on the other, it gave him painful recollections of family problems. Good Times will be remade as an animated movie by Netflix in 2024. This occurrence makes me remember a lot of things. Walker sees and says that the reboot doesn't have the same spirit as the original, which makes him think that Hollywood is trying to recycle instead of keep the original ideals. Walker said the original was a product of a unique time that showed both the hilarity and the social tensions of the time. He says that he has never thought of the reboot as a continuation, instead, he sees it as a whole new product. Walker lost a lot of memories when John Amos died the same year. Walker said in public that he respected the other actor, even though they had a lot of trouble with each other during filming. He said that the show would never be the same without Amos, and losing such an important part of it made it impossible for him to hide his sadness. This shows that Walker really appreciated how important his former colleague was to their common heritage, even though they had a lot of problems with each other. Walker is still touring with his stand-up comedy and working on new movies at the age of 78. He will be in Oklahoma in 2025 to film Forgotten Fortune. He also said that he is working on his second novel. These things prove that he is still busy and not slowing down, even if he is getting older. Walker has been on local TV to talk about skin cancer, which shows that he cares more about the health of the community. This is very different from the period when he was only known for making people laugh. Walker doesn't hide the fact that he once felt alone on set when he talks about his personal legacy. He says that humor helped him stay alive, but it also cost him relationships and connections. Walker called that his difficult days in some of his most recent thoughts. He also said that he wouldn't be the strong artist he is today if he hadn't gone through that. This honesty makes his confession worth something because it is no longer veiled beneath the gloss and glam. People remember JJ in a way that shows Walker's legacy. This character is thought to be a TV legend from the 1970s and is linked to a catchphrase that has become part of popular culture. Walker feels both proud and burdened by this. He has said many times that he finds it hard to get away from that image, but he also knows how powerful it is. Walker is a successful artist who is always thinking about his own worth. This internal fight is what makes his story special. A lot of people think that Walker left behind a complicated legacy. He was more than simply a star of a sitcom, he was also a warning about the cost of fame. There were fights with co-workers, a career that stalled after a lot of success, and personal choices that caused a lot of controversy. All of these things came together to make a complex image. Walker chose to tell the truth instead of hiding. His confessions were the last link between a troubled past and a calmer present. Walker now looks back and calls good moments both good and awful times. This is a short overview that covers everything he has been through. Laughter made him feel really good. Stress made him go into deep valleys. And his determination helped him get back up and keep going. This confession ends a long circle, leaving the public with the idea of an artist who was brave enough to face the truth, but the paradoxes that never totally go away. That's what Jimmie Walker has said about the crazy years behind the scenes of Good Times. A trip that was both amazing and hard, leaving him with both joy and empty spaces. If you like this tale and want to keep watching our videos, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new ones. Please give your opinions in the comments below. Because everyone's thoughts will make the story more interesting and real. I'll see you in the following videos.